My name's Ed Crowder. I'm with the Office of Philanthropy and Alumni Relations at Atrium Health Wake Forest Baptist in Winston-Salem and Wake Forest University School of Medicine, and I appreciate you being here. We also have a few of our colleagues from the Atrium Health Foundation here tonight. Kirsten Ashford, Vice President and Chief of Staff, Mark Griffith, Vice President of Development, and Ryan Marshall, AVP of Development. Let's see. So anyway, thank you all for being here tonight. We are focusing on advancing discovery through research and innovation in medicine. We have 3 Dean's Research Scholars tonight to present. They are Tina Brinkley, Mariana Mireya, and Karan Solingapuram Sai. They're leaders in their fields and are to be congratulated on being selected as Dean's Scholars for the inaugural year of 2024-25. We are especially pleased to have with us our Dean and partner for the Medicine Forward series, Dr. Ebony Boulware. Dr. Boulware joined Wake Forest as Dean of the Medical School in 2023, and in addition to serving as Dean, she is Chief Science Officer and Vice Chief Academic Officer for Advocate Health. When Julie Freischlag retires imminently, Dr. Boulware will become the Chief Academic Officer for Advocate Health. She is a general internist, physician scientist, and clinical epidemiologist whose passion is to improve health and access to care for all. Dean Boulware, thank you for joining us, and please come introduce our speakers.
Welcome. I want to thank you so much for coming to this Medicine Forward event here at our new Charlotte campus, the Howard R. Levine Medical Center for Education. One of the locations of my 2 offices. Very excited to be here in the Pearl. So this event is really for us to welcome you here. You've had an opportunity to see the fantastic facilities, meet some of the students, and this is just such an incredible time for the Wake Forest University School of Medicine and the entire Atrium Health and Advocate Health enterprise. Today we're going to be really focusing on the future of medicine, and the biggest portion of the event will be focused on some of our most outstanding science and research that's happening in the medical school. But first, I wanted to just recognize that this is the first year or opening of this campus, and recently we just welcomed these wonderful medical students. They're about, I want to say, a month and a half into their education. I walked by a student last week. I think they had their first major exams. This is really an incredible group of individuals who are so thrilled and excited to be getting their medical school education here in Charlotte at the Wake Forest University School of Medicine. I wanted to share some of the excitement because as the dean, I get the honor of doing the white coat ceremony. So if you don't know about the white coat ceremony, this is when the students first come in and we welcome them into learning the field of medicine, and family are there, friends are there, and it's really a very momentous occasion. And so we had the first inaugural one in July, and I wanted to share with you because a team sent me this video actually yesterday. And I wanted to share with you hot off the press so you could see the excitement and the enthusiasm and just the energy of the students and all that we have. So I think we're ready to cue it up. Today, you're going to be putting on white coats for the first time.
Christian Baldwin.
And as you do this, I want you to reflect on what this ceremony symbolizes.
Lauren Burke.
The white coat ceremony is a sacred rite of passage.
John Hewlett West.
It marks your formal entry into the study of medicine.
I'm feeling very excited to be part of the inaugural class here at the new Charlotte campus.
The class of 2029. It is truly a wonderful joy and honor to welcome each and every one of you to this most special white coat ceremony here in Charlotte. Today is truly historic. In fact, it's so historic that I need to capture this moment. I need to get a selfie with you guys. I need you guys to stand up. You are the inaugural 4-year class of medical students here at the Wake Forest University School of Medicine in Charlotte. For the first time in Charlotte's history, a class of future physicians is beginning your first 4 years right here in the heart of one of the nation's most dynamic metropolitan areas. Your class is the founding class.
Before this building, there was a reality that if you lived in Charlotte, you had to move away to go to medical school. Now we can serve the community that I grew up in, so it's very powerful, and it's something that I look forward to.
It feels very exciting to be part of the trailblazing class here at Charlotte. I definitely feel very proud that I was chosen, and I feel very excited to do this along with my 48 other classmates. So definitely very excited and very proud.
It was honestly really exciting. It's something I've looked forward to for a while. It's my first actual white coat ceremony and the first position in my family, so I'm really excited about that opportunity. And my parents have always been so supportive the whole way, and so it was really cool to kind of see their reaction when I got my coat.
I really liked Wake Forest as an institution. I think it has a really incredible curriculum that drew me to it, opportunities for research, for community service, pretty much anything that I was really interested in doing. But I really like the Charlotte campus because its curriculum was more like team-based, problem-based learning that really appealed to me.
As a physician, you will change many lives, and just as powerfully, the people that you interact with, your patients, will change you. This is what it means to practice medicine. Not only to heal, but to be transformed by the act of healing itself.
Definitely feel very nervous to start medical school and hit the ground running, but I feel very supported by the Wake Forest faculty and staff that I know will be here guiding me throughout this journey.
Class of 2029, you are history makers and you're the future of medicine. So, on behalf of all of us at the Wake Forest University School of Medicine, I want to congratulate you and welcome you. We're so proud of you, and we're so honored to be by your side on this incredible journey, and I personally am looking forward to watching each and every one of you succeed.
It's really, really exciting. It's definitely a privilege to be able to, it feels surreal, and I can't believe that I get to say that I'm part of the first class here, so it's very exciting for me, and I'm very, very excited to continue working here.
Yeah, so you can see how much excitement there really is here and how wonderful the students are, and all of our students across both campuses are truly incredible, and it's just really amazing to have such a fantastic team and students here. So tonight we're going to be focused on the academic community and how we're united in discovery, innovation, and our commitment to improving health. I'm deeply grateful to all of our faculty, staff, students, partners, and friends for being here and for your support of this very important work. I also want to extend a very heartfelt thank you to our donors and our philanthropic partners, because your generosity has made programs like this and this building and all of the great things that we do at the School of Medicine possible. And so that that really helps us move things into the future. And what I was just going to do is just talk a little bit about this era that we're in with regard to the Wake Forest University School of Medicine. Not only do we now have 2 campuses, one school with 2 campuses, but we also have a new partnership with Advocate Health. And Advocate Health, was really a broad vision where now the school is partnered and integrated with the 3rd largest not-for-profit health system in the country, multiple states. So not only do we have campuses in Winston-Salem and Charlotte, but now we also have a spread across North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Illinois. So we're developing a very large footprint. And the school is the academic core for Advocate Health. So we not only lead the education that's within the Wake Forest University School of Medicine, but all of the graduate medical education, meaning the residents, the fellows, all of that training is coordinated by the Wake Forest University School of Medicine. And so we have a very central role to this very large health system, and that means we impact over 6 million people who are cared for by Advocate in the academics. So I wanted to quickly just talk to you a little bit about our school, and just so folks can kind of ground yourselves. I often get questions about how many students do we have in the Wake Forest University School of Medicine, and we have over 500 students in our MD program. But we also train folks in biomedical research, and that's 400 students. We have a physician assistance program of almost 170 students, and a nursing program of 98 students. So you can see thousands of students are being trained within the Wake Forest University School of Medicine. We have our one school, two campuses, and beyond, and I'm splitting my time between Winston-Salem and Charlotte, so I'm up and down. We need to get some kind of a fast rail full, something, help me out. Between the two campuses, so excited. And we are going to be growing our Charlotte campus fairly rapidly. First off, we already have over 1,000 faculty members on the Charlotte campus, already engaged in teaching, research, and other activities in clinical care, of course. We're building up from, we actually started with 49 students this year, up to 96 by 2029. I suspect we'll probably get a little bit larger than that, so that by 2029 we're going to have nearly 300 medical students in Charlotte at any given time. We do have faculty now, as I said. We have over 3,500 faculty members between the Winston-Salem and the Charlotte campuses. The Winston-Salem Charlotte campus is larger. I think it's about 22,000 some, 2,400 or so. We've got 1,000 plus here in Charlotte. And then now we're also expanding our faculty to Wisconsin and Illinois. So we now have faculty that are engaged in research and teaching across the nation. And I recently spoke to a faculty member who just joined our faculty, and they were so thrilled and excited to be a part of Wake Forest University School of Medicine. They reached out to me and just said, hey, I am so proud to be a part of the team. And that's really just such a testament to the Wake Forest University School of Medicine, the people that we have here, our teams, the excellence and the excitement that we've been generating. So this is a really transformational time for Wake Forest University School of Medicine. We're going to be talking a lot about fantastic research that we have at Wake Forest University School of Medicine. And we have research really across the spectrum, almost every single type of research that you could think of. We really have some form of that at the Wake Forest University School of Medicine. And we really focus in several areas, including aging, Alzheimer's disease, diabetes, cancer, neurosciences, cardiovascular or heart and vascular, and regenerative medicine. And we also focus on making sure everybody has access to that highest quality of care across their lifespan. So these are really the areas that we focus in on. Our research funding has grown significantly over the past 5 to 7 years. We've doubled our research growth. And now we're really the basis for a whole platform, a whole national platform for research. We have something where we now have the regulatory infrastructure to do clinical trials across all of Advocate. The Wake Forest University School of Medicine is the basis for a single institutional review board. So this means that we can do research across the entire enterprise that's watched over and regulated through the Wake Forest University School of Medicine. And that sets us up to be the basis for a national center for clinical trials. So powered by the school, Advocate will now have a national center for clinical trials where our researchers support and get involved in doing clinical trials anywhere throughout the Advocate footprint. So now millions of individuals can have access to clinical trials in a very streamlined way that wasn't possible. And we are the largest health system in the country to have this. We're the only health system that I'm aware of that has this kind of an arrangement where a premier school of medicine fuels clinical trials across a huge footprint. So if you've ever had access to or been involved with cancer care, for example, you want to have access to a clinical trial because that's where all the cutting edge treatments come. You get those access to that through the trials, and then you compare it to the current state of the art, so that if you get at least current state of the art, and you may even get better through the clinical trial. So that's what we're offering to patients across the entire footprint. We're really focused on 3 areas where we're bringing all of our science together with our clinical activity, particularly in cancer, the neurosciences, and heart and vascular. Of course, we're doing this across the full spectrum, but we have leaders that are bringing together our clinical trials as well as our basic science research, our lab research, and even our data research all together, starting off in these areas, but across the entire spectrum of our school, we're focused on that. I also just wanted to say that we're training for the future. As we're training these new MD students and all of these different students, we're thinking about how do we keep them in our system too, because I don't know if you know, but we have a huge workforce need. We're down on, we need physicians significantly, we need nurses, we need physician's assistants, we need basically every type of medical professional we're short on, and we're based on the pace that the United States is training, we're going to have significant shortages over the next 30 years or so. So what we're really focused on, first off, is making sure that the folks that we train, we retain, because we want to keep them in our communities, we want to keep them in our systems, and making sure that these great students that we're training are providing care to our communities, such as our community right here in Charlotte. We're also thinking about where all these students can get their training. Now that we have this national, multiple states, our students have opportunities to train across the nation. So that really is an opportunity that we're excited about, given that the connection and the integration with Advocate. I talked about clinical trials, and what that means is that all of even our people that work in our health system are going to be learning how to do clinical trials and learning about the importance of clinical trials. And then we have a lot of unique things that I will be coming back to talk to you at Future Medicine Forwards about training for the future. So as you know, artificial intelligence is here. This means that all of our medical professionals that we're training need to learn how to work with it. They need to learn how to understand it. They need to learn how to interrogate it. They also are going to be increasingly in virtual environments. For example, there's now virtual primary care. We're doing thousands of virtual primary care visits. People have such a hard time getting into primary care. One of the things that Advocate has done is increase primary care to 100,000 visits. Now, every time a new virtual primary care practice opens, the leader of that, Dr. Scott Rismiller, tells me the practice fills up immediately. So people really need to get into clinical care, and so offering a virtual option really helps folks get that care. So we're training folks for the future in this way. They need to learn these new technologies. So just wanted to let you know very briefly, because we're going to move on to our brilliant scientists here. I'm going to introduce them. But what's happening in the school is truly transformational. This building represents some of that transformation. There's transformation happening in Winston-Salem, there's transformation happening here in Charlotte, and there's transformation happening across the nation. And the School of Medicine is really fueling that discovery, that innovation, and really improving care everywhere through those activities. So I'm going to transition to really talking about the Dean's Research Scholars. And the Dean's Research Scholars program is a program that I started last year. This is a set of our inaugural Dean's Research Scholars to really highlight our most promising, up-and-coming, serious researchers who are making national impact with their work. And so what we've done as a leadership team is select these faculty to support their research and have them talk to us about all the discoveries, because these are folks at the cutting edge of what's happening with regard to discovery. And so what I'm going to do is talk to you a little bit about these research scholars and then bring them down. Each of them is going to give a presentation. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So, and they all have bios. If you have they have very lengthy bios. I'm going to give. We want to hear from them more than want to hear about all their. Just read about their accomplishments. We can hear the science, which is what we're here for. But I'd like to introduce these. Dr. Tina Brinkley will be coming up first. And I'll introduce you all first, and then you can come up. Dr. Brinkley is an associate professor in the Department of Internal Medicine, and her research focuses on investigating the effects of exercise, diet, and weight loss on body fat distribution, cardiovascular function, cardiometabolic risk factors, and brain health in older adults. Dr. Mariana Murea will be coming up after Dr. Brinkley, and she is an associate professor in the Department of Internal Medicine, nephrology section. Her research focuses on investigating patient-centered vascular access selection to improve the long-term outcomes for patients on hemodialysis. And she does a lot of studies to understand that area. And then we have Dr. Kiran Sulingampuram Sai. Did I say it right? Yeah, I got the thumbs up. I tried. And Dr. Sai is an associate professor in the Department of Radiology and the director for radiochemistry and cyclotron operations. His research is highly innovative, translational, and fully NIH funded. He has successfully translated multiple radio tracers for imaging from the bench to the bedside, including pioneering some first-in-human patient trials that really help us understand a number of different things, which he's going to talk to us about. His research is very innovative, and you'll enjoy hearing from him.
Thank you so much for the introduction. It's been such an honor being one of the inaugural Dean's Research Scholars this year, and it's an honor to be here tonight to speak in front of all of you. So I am going to start this presentation with a statistic, and it's probably one that you've seen before. And here it is. Aging is the single largest risk factor for most chronic diseases. So if you think about things like heart disease and cancer and stroke, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, these diseases all not only increase in prevalence with aging, meaning as you get older, you're more likely to have one of these diseases, but as you can see from this figure, also the number of people who die from these diseases increases dramatically with aging. And why is that? What is it about aging that makes it such an important risk factor? So generally speaking, aging is the process of growing older. But if we stop and think about what that process actually entails, it can be described as the time-related deterioration of physiological functions that are necessary to survive. And scientists have identified 12 hallmarks of aging. You can think of these as the fundamental biological changes that occur in cells all throughout the body that really drive the pace of aging. And the more quickly these changes occur, the more you're going to age. And so on the flip side of that, when we talk about healthy aging, we think about the absence of disease, the maintenance of physical and cognitive function, the ability to maintain independence as you grow older, and generally maintaining a good quality of life into late life. And so when I talk about wanting to promote healthy aging, it's really about improving health span and not lifespan. So we've already been really good at increasing life expectancy through vaccines and medical advances. We can keep people alive for a longer period of time, but can we keep them healthier for a longer period of time? And so if you look at this figure here, the black line represents the typical health trajectory of the average person. What we really want to do is move this line out a bit. So if you look at the dotted line, this is the gold standard. We want to keep people healthier for longer, in better health and acceptable quality of life up until the very end. And so that really means the difference between the 90-year-old who was running marathons up until her last year of life and the 85-year-old who for the last 10 years has been battling chronic conditions and is now wheelchair bound and living in a nursing home. So traditionally, our approach to preventing disease is identifying and treating risk factors for a specific disease. So if you have high cholesterol levels, your doctor might put you on a statin to lower your cholesterol levels and lower your risk for heart disease. But if we use an aging-focused approach, we really target those biological hallmarks of aging that I described earlier in the hopes that we can delay multiple diseases and keep people healthier and high quality of life longer. So as someone who is trained in exercise physiology and aging, I have built my career developing and testing lifestyle interventions, predominantly involving exercise, and looking at their effects on health outcomes in older adults. And I think we all know that exercise is really good for mind, body, and soul. And there's a lot of evidence to suggest that the reason exercise is so good for health is because it does really target many of these biological processes of aging. So I have been at Wake Forest for nearly 20 years now. And over the course of that time, I've really had the honor and privilege of leading and being involved in a number of clinical trials that have focused on lifestyle interventions in older adults. So we've looked at calorie-restricted diets for weight loss. We've looked at ketogenic diets, which are low in carbohydrates and high in fats. If we pair that with a Mediterranean diet, we really try to incorporate healthy fats like olive oil into the diet. I've been involved in studies that include both aerobic exercise, so exercises that get your heart rate up and your heart pumping, as well as resistance exercise to build muscle strength. And finally, I've led studies in the cardiac rehab setting. So these are programs for people who've had a cardiac event or procedure and now need help with education and exercise in their recovery. And collectively, all these studies have really shown that lifestyle interventions can have a very profound effect on multiple aging-related outcomes. So we've seen benefits on cardiac function and blood vessel health, improvements in cognitive function, so memory and thinking skills, as well as blood flow to the brain. It can lower inflammation in the body. It improves weight loss. It causes reductions in body fat, and can generally improve muscle strength and mobility. And so these are all great things. And typically with these studies, we bring people into the clinic to do the intervention, right? So they have to come to us. But really, we need to meet people where they are. And so in the next couple of slides, I'm going to highlight just 2 studies where we've done just that. So the first study is the Vivo Heart study. This is a trial that I recently completed. It's in partnership with a startup company called Vivo. They deliver small group-based exercise classes. They're delivered virtually over Zoom, and they're led by a certified trainer. And so we identified older adults with cardiovascular disease who live in rural communities in North Carolina, and they all went through this 12-week home-based program. So in addition to the exercise classes twice a week, they also participated in nutrition classes once a week that were led by a registered dietitian. We also monitor their physical activity, heart rate, and blood pressure remotely using different mobile devices. And then we brought them in before and after the 12-week intervention to test a number of different functional outcomes. And what we found was that older adults with cardiovascular disease are willing to attend virtually exercise and nutrition classes over the 12-week period. They also come back for follow-up testing. We see significant improvements in mobility and endurance after the 12 weeks, and they really enjoyed the program and found it to be beneficial. Another study I'll highlight is the U.S. Pointer trial. This is a study that you might have heard about. It got a lot of media attention over the summer. This is a trial where they went out into the community and partnered with local YMCAs all across the country and other community partners to deliver an intervention in the community. And so they enrolled over 2,000 individuals from sites all over the country. These were all older adults who were cognitively normal at the beginning of the study, but had risk factors for dementia. And so they were randomized or enrolled or assigned to one of 2 different lifestyle interventions. The first one was a structured intervention. This included physical exercise, nutrition, cognitive and social stimulation, and guideline-based health coaching. The other intervention was a self-guided intervention, and this also focused on general health education, support and encouragement, as well as health monitoring, but it was much less intensive. And so what we found in this study is that both intervention groups actually improved cognition over the 2-year period. However, the structured intervention led to more significant improvements in global cognition compared to the self-guided arm. And what this suggests is that a structured lifestyle intervention may delay the onset of cognitive decline by 1 to 2 years. I'll also mention that I am leading, with my collaborator who's here today, a neurovascular sub-study in Pointer that is really focused on understanding the health and function of blood vessels that send blood from the heart to the brain, and trying to understand the connections between the brain, the heart, and the blood vessels, how they talk to each other to regulate blood pressure and blood flow. And so we're excited that we'll be presenting the results of this sub-study in an upcoming meeting later this year. And so I just want to end with what I think will be important for the future. So our Aging Center at Wake Forest is really good at identifying interventions that improve health in older adults. We can keep them mobile for longer, we can help keep them independent. But we really need to get these effective interventions in the hands of more people that can benefit from them. And so I think we really need some key investments and figuring out how to best implement and integrate these effective interventions in clinical settings and in the community. And so there are different frameworks like the NIH stage model for behavioral intervention development that can help us move from research to practice. And finally, I am passionate about training the next generation of scientists. They are our future, and I think we need some investment in providing mentorship and research training programs so that we can ensure that we are able to continue this great work that we've started and advance the field of aging. So, thank you.
I'm Mariana Maria, and so before I begin, just a couple of personal notes. I'm recently promoted to a professor of medicine, and I'm originally from Romania, and I came to the United States in 2001, and I have been a proud faculty member at Wake Forest section on nephrology since 2017, and as a clinician and researcher, my work has centered on dialysis. So over the next few minutes, I will discuss about what dialysis is, why research in dialysis matters to patients and society, what are the current clinical trials that I'm leading across the nation, and what are the other studies that I'm planning to develop. What is the function of the kidneys now? So the kidneys basically are the body's natural filters and the silent heroes. I would say that effectively an equivalent of 50 gallons of blood filter or pass through the kidneys every day, removing the waste products of the cellular metabolism and excess fluid that may otherwise build when the kidney function declines. And in fact, a vast array of diseases can affect the filters, which are the very intricate blood vessels in the kidneys, literally clogging those vessels. And as the kidney function declines, a plethora of symptoms befalls on patients and individuals. And in the United States, more than 1 in 7 adults suffer from chronic kidney disease. 90% of them are unaware of having kidney disease. And as the kidney function comes down to very low levels, and dialysis as a form of treatment of kidney failure, or as a form of maintenance of or control of the symptoms of the kidney failure, patients develop virtually all symptoms and signs and symptoms that are known in modern medicine. And so at an individual level, advanced kidney failure and dialysis is a very burdensome disease. And so here comes hemodialysis, which is coming as effectively, it's an artificial filter, and we gain access to the blood compartment through a catheter or surgically created shunts, fistula shunts. And blood passes through an artificial filter and to remove the waste products and excess fluid. Now, dialysis is a life-sustaining treatment indeed, but is far from perfect. And it is very burdensome for the patient, and it's not a cure, meaning that in the absence of kidney transplant, patients are dependent on dialysis treatments for the remainder of their life. Now, we are talking about broad scale, at the macro scale, the burden of kidney disease is very large. Every day in the United States, 350 patients are started on chronic dialysis, and more than half of the individuals receive chronic hemodialysis on a daily basis in the United States. And because of the scarcity of clinical studies, every individual is treated with a one-size-fits-all, whether they are just starting hemodialysis or they have been on dialysis for years. or whether they are young and fit or they are old and frail. The one-size-fits-all treatment means that everybody gets recommended to have surgical intervention, to have a fistula shunt placed, and everybody gets hemodialysis 3 times a week. Dialysis itself, it's a very rough intervention, and as any medical intervention has its own side effects. So overall, the prognosis of a patient who starts chronic dialysis is more dismal than a prognosis of a patient who gets diagnosed with metastatic cancer. So what my study, but the goal with my research is to advance the kidney care to a future where dialysis is delivered in a personalized manner and where we understand how dialysis also adds to the morbidity of the patients who live with advanced kidney disease. So with the NIH funding, I'm leading, and we are close to the last 2 years of a multi-center clinical trial here in the United States. It spans 7 healthcare systems. I have brought together vascular surgery faculties and nephrology faculties from these healthcare systems, and we're trying to answer the question, is the standard recommendation of fistula shunt placement in older adults with chronic morbidities who are otherwise prone to have fistula failure and who otherwise have a very poor quality of life. Is that fistula recommendation indeed the most superior approach for vascular access, or are other vascular access options as well safe and less intrusive and perhaps better aligned to their goals of care and quality of life? So if we are to get answers with this clinical trial, we'll hope to give the patients better guidance and let them make better choices, and that was specifically for older adults who are frail and have complex medical conditions. As a very important fact in patients who actually start dialysis is that many of them do not have zero kidney function when the dialysis needs to be added to their care. In fact, 1 in 4 patients who start dialysis still have ongoing kidney function of at least half a liter a day, when we call that residual kidney function. Unfortunately, these patients are treated with the exact same full dose, standard dose from the get-go, from the outset. For various reasons, patients, whether they are just at the beginning of their dialysis treatment, they are just diagnosed with kidney failure, or they have been on dialysis for months or years, they are started on full dose hemodialysis. So my question was, do the people who transition from having chronic kidney disease to dialysis needs really need to get started with a full dose hemodialysis from the outset? So with PCORI funding, now I'm leading the 2+ trial, is another multi-center clinical trial, where we enroll patients who have just started, who were just started by their treating providers on chronic hemodialysis. And if they have residual kidney function, which we measure with time during collection, then we prescribe either gradual hemodialysis, which is twice a week. We follow the residual kidney function periodically, and then we go up to 3 times a week, which is the full dose, when the residual kidney function declines or as clinical manifestations require. And we compare this gradual incremental approach to the conventional standard full dose hemodialysis from the outset. We also enroll caregivers, and we do interviews with dialysis personnel, nurses, social worker, dietitians. We want to get a full spectrum of opinions that look on these 2 approaches to hemodialysis. This clinical trial spans 11 healthcare systems and more than 60 dialysis centers, and we have partnered with kidney patient organizations. We are also hoping to get funding to add heart MRI, heart imaging studies where we would look at the heart structural and functional changes at baseline and at 12 months of dialysis and compare the heart structural changes between the 2 treatment approaches. Another area of dialysis care that intrigues me is the continuity of care. Now, patients who have chronic kidney disease before they start dialysis, they are under kidney care team or kidney provider at the clinic, a clinic that is affiliated with a healthcare system. When they transition and they need to start dialysis, they go to a dialysis center that is close to the residence, and at the dialysis center, they are seen by a kidney care team and a kidney physician. Now, it may happen that the same kidney doctor who saw that person for months or years before starting dialysis may also be the same kidney doctor who goes to that dialysis center, but not all the time. It's very random, it's very haphazard, depending on where the kidney doctors or the organization or the structure of kidney care delivery. So I'm in the process of obtaining the national registry data on pre-dialysis and post-dialysis patient-provider encounters and look at whether continuity of care by chance influences or improves patient outcomes. And if it does, then a restructuring and reorganization of kidney care delivery could follow. Another area, also part of the dialysis research, and now takes me more into molecular research, is that would look at mitochondrial function. Now, what mitochondria are, just in layman terms, is, or simpler terms, are the powerhouses of the cells that produce cellular energy, or which is ATP, is the energy currency for the cells. A large body of research, basic science research, has shown that when a tissue has mitochondrial dysfunction, when those powerhouses are impaired, that entire organ can develops a disease. So mitochondrial dysfunction of cells in the brain can cause neurocognitive dysfunction, neurodegenerative disease. If it happens in the eyes, can cause ocular disease and so forth. Now, as I said, patients who start on dialysis develop multi-organ diseases through the remainder of their lifetime on dialysis. So my question itself is dialysis while it's a life-sustaining procedure, is dialysis adding cellular stress, energy stress? Because patients, once they finish a dialysis treatment, after each dialysis treatment, they literally say they are out of energy, out of power. It takes them hours to days to recover, to do something as simple as get out of bed. So what I'm hoping to do is do molecular studies and examine mitochondrial function before and during and after each dialysis treatment, look at it all, not only cross-sectionally but also longitudinally, and do a lot research in the mitochondrial dysfunction area. And if it does happen in that way, then there are therapies that can counteract mitochondrial dysfunction that may happen because of the supraphysiologic design by necessity of the artificial filter. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention.
Hello everyone, I'm Kiran Solingapuram Sai, Associate Professor of Radiology. I'm hoping they saved the best for the last. Thank you Dean Bolavar and her team for the Dean Scholar too. All right, I'm giving you a 1 minute background of where I'm coming from. So very small town in India, South India. I was born in Sikandrabad, Lalaguda. That's like a small place, as you can see on the left hand corner. Born and raised in this one bedroom, or not even one bedroom, a studio apartment for 22 years. That's where we were living in. And that's my high school, not my high school, my elementary, middle, and high school. Every floor represents a school there. So literally we were in the elementary school, in the ground floor, middle school, and then the high school. From there, moved to Northern Illinois University for getting my master's and PhD, and then my Washington University in St. Louis, got my fellowship in radiology and nuclear medicine, and then moved to Wake Forest in 2014. So research to me is very personal. I lost my grandmom at the age of 64, and it was so bad, like the dementia took her life within a year. We don't even know whether it is Alzheimer's or any other vascular dementia. No tools were available. No understanding of the disease. More importantly, no access. So passion for developing better tools for early diagnosis was there in me from beginning. And that's my beautiful grandma. So I'm going to give you an outline of the two topics I'm going to talk today. One is the microtubule PET ligands, which really is translation studies. And the next is I'm going to switch gears and talk about something about the nicotine addiction, radioactive cigarettes, the PET imaging of nicotine. All right, when I said translation, and I mean it translational, we go to a bench, we write down the structure, we made a compound in the lab. That's what you see in the left-hand side. Design and development. We do all the in vitro studies, and from there, we move the compound to validation in the mouse models, like literally mice, rats, and then we move into monkeys. Only when we test all this happens, we go into first in human trials. And this is a perfect example of what Dr. Bulla was talking about, my research, moving from bench to bed. And you will see my 10 years of journey in less than 10 minutes here. So here, a typical problem with the Alzheimer's disease pathogenesis is, what you can see on your right-hand side is, patients come to the clinic when you have symptoms. That is, most of your brain is already having amyloid plaques or tau tangles, more red, more uptake, that you can see on your right-hand side. But the problem is, the brain has things going on 15 to 20 years before you see the clinical symptoms. And that's where I'm like, something is happening to the brain and we need to target that side of the brain. That is the preclinical symptoms before we go into the clinical era. Boom. So that's where I went back to the lab and I thought, why not we label the microtubules? Why not we label something after product of these microtubules? So as a chemist in me, got back to the lab, made this particular compound and synthesized it and tagged with the radioactive isotopes. And boom, this is the first brain penetrant microtubule PET ligand that goes into the brain. As you can see on the left-hand side, that goes in we tested in the mice, we tested in the rats, and also in the monkeys. Clearly shows that this particular compound has high uptake as they have Alzheimer's. So this is the first in-class radio tracer that targets the microtubules. That's pretty cool. Then what is the purpose of it? So let's see, I'm not going to explain my 3 years of work here, how we scanned the mice all the way from 2 months to 22 months. And you can see here on the left-hand side, this is an Alzheimer's mouse model of APPPS1. Typically, you get the plaques in it. What I really want you all to see is on these two circles where I made it here. So you really see a behavior changes that the mice undergoes only at the month of 10 to 12 months. They really have Alzheimer-like symptoms at 10 to 12 months. Whereas our tracer that we developed in the lab can predict the changes in the brain at 2 to 3 months. Hooray, that's like an early symptoms can be predicted with the help of this microtubule PET ligand. So with this success story, we went ahead and did the first in human studies with the FDA approval. We got sure like whether it is safe. Yes, it was safe. We did in 6 male and 6 female subjects. It was safe for 1 hour, 24 hours, 48 hours. And this trial happened very successfully with the help of Columbia University. And then we moved into Alzheimer's subjects. So we tested with 24 subjects. It's a smaller trial. What we did in 3 groups. First group is a cognitively normal. They don't have any amyloid plaques. And the second group is cognitively normal, yet they have amyloid plaques. And the third group is both. They have Alzheimer's or MCI group who have amyloid plaques. Again, this is a very phase 1 clinical trial. Want to show what is the safety. What does this particular compound that we developed in the lab does even do in human trials. So like you can see, we have injected the compound and we are tested. First is the safety, and then we wanted to see what happens and what is the secondary endpoint. What does your microtubule PET compound does in Alzheimer's brains? So safety is well validated. We did not see any adverse effects in all the 24 subjects we have scanned. Boom, this is the first tracer that really shows females for some reasons have higher uptake, early microtubule destabilization when compared to age-matched males. Not just in the overall group, but individually when you take single groups, you see that for some reasons females have higher uptake or higher microtubule destabilization happening, meaning their brains are having more destabilization, more prone to the final cognitive symptoms. And then as you can, this is a particular example which is particularly age-matched subjects. On the first one is cognitively normal, amyloid negative, and then the middle is amyloid positive subject, and the last one is the 80 subjects. You will clearly see the tracer is able to distinguish how the microtubule destabilization happens from one stage to other stage. And I'm not going to go with the stitch. This is the current situation of the AD market. The same subjects, when scanned with amyloid tracer or with the tau tracer, there is no significance. Then what we did was we used our tracer and we saw literally at every particular stage, microtubule tracer can show you significant differences. And right now we are exploring more with the research trial. We are conducting and recruiting more subjects to see if it is valid across a larger subject population. And this is the first PET radio tracer to image microtubules in brain. Females, for some reasons, have higher uptake when compared to age-matched males in all the sectors. And as I was telling you, cognitively normal amyloid negative people have less uptake. However, as they progress, they have more uptake in the MCI AD people. So the next steps are increasing the sample size to really validate whatever we have seen in a very small subset of people with the 24 subjects. And again, moving into the preclinical AD, it could be a real tool if this validates early signature of brain changes before really clinical symptoms appear. Will be validated across all the Alzheimer's subject people. I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to talk about something again very personal to me. My dad was a chain smoker of both e-cigarettes and the combustible cigarettes. Have you ever thought like what exactly does the e-cigarettes does, the electronic cigarettes does? So this is a very simple question came to my mind, like what is the brain nicotine accumulation from electronic cigarettes? Of course you need to compare with the standard combustible cigarettes. So the chemist in my mind and thing went back to the lab and I'm like, why don't we make radioactive cigarettes? Yes, you heard it right. We made the first radioactive cigarettes in the lab because the half-life is only 20 minutes. We can scan it real time, we can make people smoke and then get results. So what I have used in my trial is literally using an e-cigarette and I made this particular, the subjects come and smoke the same cigarettes on the same day and I made this radioactive cigarette. That is the nicotine is being tagged with the C11 isotope. This is a very complicated chemistry. Again, we made it from 2 ml to 20 microliters has to happen within 20 minutes. So we did all the chemistry in the lab, we tagged the radiochemistry, and this is a very cool design. What we made is we made the subject go into the scanner, and that is literally a vacuum cleaner. So we used the vacuum cleaner to suck up all the smoke. And then we made sure the subject smokes a combustible cigarette with loaded the radioactive nicotine that we made in the lab. So what we have did is so as you can see on your right hand side, every subject comes into the lab and takes the first puff. When we take the first puff of cigarette on your left hand side, as you see the combustible cigarette, we really take a cigarette and we load a 20 microliters of radioactive nicotine in that, and then we give them only exactly amount of puff. So they cannot take too much of puff. So even that is being controlled. So, and then the same subject comes back in the afternoon and he takes an electronic cigarette, the e-cig vape. As we can see in the right hand side, we load the same e-cig that we vape it, but we give them with the help of a tubing, and then they do it. The moment they take the first puff, the scanner camera button starts. Boom, you can see the more real-time thing happens. So let's see what happens with the images. Of course, the brain does the same thing. It does go into the brain. Your first puff of nicotine takes only 20 seconds to hit the brain. So it's like 20 to 23 seconds, as you can see the differences. The combustible cigarettes takes 20 seconds and the electronic cigarettes takes 23 seconds to go into the brain and hits all your brain, as you can see in your red thing. And the more important thing, which we really were surprised, is this guy. Look at all the electronic cigarette happens to your respiratory tract. So all your lower respiratory tract takes up more of your nicotine when compared to the combustible cigarette. So this won the SNMMI 2019 Image of the Year award. As you can see on the left hand side, literally all your larynx, trachea, bronchi, lungs, liver is all radioactive with the help of that nicotine that they took has more absorption in the respiratory tract when compared to the smoking. So electronic cigarettes are bad. So it does go into your body much deeper, and especially in the respiratory tract. And this is the same subject, FYI. The subject took it in the morning, the combustible cigarette. The same subject takes the electronic cigarette in the afternoon. So another thing, again, I'm not against women, but what we have seen here is, again, women for some reasons have higher combustible and electronic cigarette absorption. They take up more when compared to the age-matched male. As you can see in the left-hand side, both my combustible male and electronic cigarette male has less nicotine absorption when compared to females. So females are both significantly higher in both the cases. So the conclusion is we have done the cigarette with electronic cigarettes and combustible cigarette. Right now I have submitted an application to see the effect of oils and also the flavors. So a lot of flavors are coming in the electronic cigarette. Nobody knows what does these flavors do inside the body. So we're trying to recruit subjects and make them smoke with the different flavors and really understand what does the flavor does to the nicotine absorption, not just in the brain, but also follow up into the respiratory tract. And then combine or correlate with the topology of the whole addiction spectrum. Of course, it takes a village. It's not all my work. It takes a team, and it takes literally all these people to make who I am today. And yes, it took complete village to make me a person today, what I'm looking in front of you. And I'm deeply grateful for that. And these are all my acknowledgement, my team members, a lot of funding sources, both my pilot grant sources, and all my collaborators and mentors who really played a key role to train me, nurture me, mentor me throughout my pathway. And this is my training team and my lab. This is my last year's 40th birthday party. They threw me a surprise party, and that's the Christmas party we had last year at my place. Now, of course, it would have not happened without my beautiful family, my wife and 2 daughters. My wife is sitting here. Thank you for all your support.
So I have a question for Kiran. Just a question for that female-male difference, is that due to the adjustable body size or fat distribution, or is that across estrogen levels, because that's also going to affect the nicotine absorption and processing because of cytochrome B-perfect?
It could be a thing, but we haven't looked at the angle at all. We do not have any data from that fat composition. Maybe we should look into that data.
Yeah, because if you have access to the monkeys also, you could do that study, because then you have a controlled environment.
Sure thing.
Question for Kieran as well. First of all, wonderful work, very interesting results, and thank you for presenting that to us. My question comes from the image that you presented last with the differential uptake between the combustible cigarette and the e-cigarette. Was the order in which the patient consumed the product altered? As you said, it was combustible first and several hours later, of course with the half-life. For the e-cigarette, but was that order ever switched?
It did switch. It was randomized, completely randomized. It was a randomized trial. They pick what they want. So it was. We were all blinded. We only know the day before what they're going to smoke. So we make it in the morning. So whether it is electronic cigarette or combustible, it did switch.
Okay.
And
Perfect.
it still got the same thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was curious, with regard to the study you did with the 2 groups, kind of the more in-person group versus the virtual group, what role was socialization in terms of, any effect at all with the outcomes that the patients experienced?
Definitely the structured group that had more intensive intervention, that had more group activities, got more interaction with other people. And the self-guided one had less of that. So I do think, social stimulation is really important for not only helping people make positive changes, but also, from a mental health standpoint, it also encourages them to, make these changes and be more engaged in the process. So I do think that is something that was important and to be factored in, and they are looking at the different components of the intervention and how things like socialization and cognitive stimulation may have impacted it.
In your studies of lifestyle intervention, particularly exercise, to what degree did you find the level of importance for intervals of higher intensity in the exercise regimen?
So our interventions didn't typically do interval training. We would do basically a moderate to vigorous intensity exercise prescription. So we didn't really look at how intense the activity was and whether or not that impacted their intervention. We obviously measure heart rate activity as a measure of intensity, and everybody typically would stay in the same moderate intensity range. So we really didn't look at that too closely.
Thank you. I actually have 2 questions. First, for Dr. Maria. In the context of your research looking at gently starting dialysis to improve lifestyle, decrease fatigue. Where does PD fit into your paradigm, and what are you thinking about there?
Exactly exactly in the same paradigm, peritoneal dialysis, and I'm a co-investigator to a PCORI submitted grant where we also hope to study, or we're proposing to study incremental start peritoneal dialysis based on the same concept as not just of over, because there is this tendency maybe of over treating and without taking into full account the ongoing kidney function that is still present in some patients. So it's exactly at the same level. I think very good question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Dr. Salingapura, in the context of looking at the imaging predictability for Alzheimer's, have you looked at the correlation with the genetic testing that's out there that all of us don't want to do because there's nothing we can do about it?
It's ongoing right now. I am working on it to see that spectra as well. So I do not have the results, but we are looking into that.
I'm just curious how the genetic testing might correlate with your imaging.
Sure thing. It might correlate well. We'll hope for it. But yeah, I'm still looking into that. Thank you.
I guess I'm mainly addressing Dr. Maria. You mentioned the mitochondria involved, and several years ago I was interested in companies that were making simulations of disease models, like for diabetes, and this was to help advance or speed up drug development. I'm not sure actually how many companies that like that have succeeded, but there was one in Palo Alto. So I was just wondering if, I know this is all about clinical, so the patient aspect of it, but do you, or any of you actually, do you know anything about the advancement of any kind of simulations of disease that might help you maybe target your approach as you interact with the people in the communities? Or
yeah, so at Wake Forest, actually, molecular department, we have world leaders in mitochondrial research, and they do fantastic studies of mitochondrial, like molecular function at the cytochrome level and purinergic metabolism level. So I'm hoping to partner with, to collaborate with them and to do research on how the passage of blood through the filter and depending on the pressure that is put in the filter because for each patient the different amount of fluid, for example, has to be removed. So that biomechanical force which is applied in the filter, which is at much higher levels that the blood goes through when it passes through the kidneys. So that act that is foundational for dialysis, to what level it affects the purinergic transition and even purinergic clearance because purines are not only in the intracellular level, they're participating at the ATP synthesis, but are also found on the extracellular level. And in fact, certain disease models that is an inherited disease are actually that where the patients develop vascular calcifications of a phenotype that is, you can only otherwise find it in patients who have who have advanced kidney disease and on dialysis. It's a specific type of vessel calcification in the medial wall. So that genetic disease has actually a mutation in one of the transporters in the cellular membrane that allows or is involved in the intracellular to extracellular transport of certain purines and the purinergic metabolism between intracellular and extracellular levels. So yes, I think it's I'm hoping that we'll get that. And yeah, a lot of research, the research in mitochondrial dysfunction is booming, and a lot of medications, as you mentioned, are targeting particular, molecules in that chain of mitochondrial events, mitochondrial reactions. So, yeah.
You sort of also asked about disease models broadly, and one of the really unique things that's happening at Wake Forest is the Wake Forest Institute for Regenerative Medicine, where Dr. Tony Attal is basically growing organs, and so there's organ on a chip, multiple different types of organs, heart, kidney, lung, and so that allows for there to be those actual human disease models, and so that work is evolving, but that is another way to, I thought that might be somewhat getting at some of your question. There's actually, Dr. Attal will be giving a presentation next year at one of the Medicine Forward events, as Joanna's going to say, but really groundbreaking work to be done, that's being done, where he's literally the global leader in that area.
Yeah, what's the future of the kidney, the pig transplants? Do you think that's an avenue where they use pigs to make kidneys and go from there?
Absolutely, yes. And I think, major investment needs to be put into xenotransplantation, and particularly because of the genetic manipulation these days is becoming better and better. Specifically now, the animal organs can be genetically manipulated. There would be immune, if I may say, to certain viruses that otherwise are present in animal organs, and or certain gene expression that you don't want to have once it's in the human body. And so now with the CRISPR technology, which you all know, right, that has changed the world of genetic treatment, they have been able to perfect or optimize or prime these animal organs better and better. So yes, I think that field, and I'm hoping that it's going to move as fast as possible, because the organ transplantation shortage for patients on dialysis and for other patients who have advanced organ disease, it's serious. And with the global population and so forth, it's going to get worse unless we hopefully, this or xenotransplants will. But I think they are the future for sure, yes.
Well, first, thank you all for sharing your expertise. I'm actually Clay. I work in our system at Levine Children's, and I have a question for Dr. Maria. Is there anything different when it comes to your research around hemodialysis for the age of the patient? So we do have our hemo and peritoneal dialysis outpatient at Levine Children's, and just wonder if what's the difference between when you're working with children versus adults?
So I don't work with children, but incremental dialysis has been starting to be studied also in children. So now incremental hemodialysis has been a niche in many parts of Europe. So there are centers in France, Switzerland, Italy, Spain, that all the time have practiced only incremental hemodialysis or incremental peritoneal dialysis. Now the setup in different countries is totally different. If we want to look at the entire landscape, it's rather complex. But there have been now more and more reports and studies that look at incremental hemodialysis in a pediatric population, and I think that recently the largest one came from Israel, for example, and it's also very safe. And in fact, a lot of kids actually suffer from congenital diseases where they have impairment in urine concentrating ability, and so they have actually the urine volume preserved even longer than many of the adult populations. But just to kind of, maybe I should give a shorter answer. Yes, and there is more and more that are coming out. It's relatively the same principle. Now, these patients, though, if we elect incremental or tailored patient-centered dialysis treatment, they do require a lot more attention and more engagement from the kidney team. So yeah, it does. It helps. It unburdens the patient it moves the burden to other parties, right? So,
Thank you.
thank you.